Welcome back to the Ink Sink. I am Annie.
I'm Kaylee.
And we are the publishing podcast for the rest of us. Whether or not we call it the Ink Sink forever is up for debate. I just want you guys to know we've had several cute suggestions for new names. If we wanted to have like maybe a less like robust sounding name, we could call it the Ink Droplet.
On dry weeks.
On dry weeks. We have breaks and they're called ink droughts. We sometimes have ink deserts.
It's perfect.
It is. It's going to be great.
This is a great theme. I like this for us.
Thank you. I like this for us too. All right. So our main segment today is what can you do with a BA in English? What is my life going to be? I'm going to keep singing. 4 years of college and plenty of knowledge. All right, I'm done. So, what can you do with a BA in English, Kaylee? I mean, other than be a teacher
so I'm gonna ask, a writer. I'm going to turn it back on you. And to be fair, and not to say anything against teachers, but everybody knows, and so we're going to set that aside. That is obviously a very respectable, highly necessary field.
Doing the Lord's work. Every teacher, I don't care if you're a college teacher, if you are a teacher in hell, you are doing the Lord's work regardless. Yep. Like, you are taking knowledge and giving it to other people. You are doing amazing. Never let anyone tell you different. This country needs to support. I would 100% support a tax raise on every human in America in order to fund more teachers and give them what they need. Good job, everybody. It's not for us.
Yes. God,
if I can speak for you.
I know, specifically, I think that was my whole life, was like, I'm going to study English, and then are you going to be a teacher? Fuck no. I did not say that when I was 7, but I said things that meant that.
Poopy, no.
Heck no. H-E double hockey sticks.
That sounds stinky. I was a little hellion of a child, and I knew...
No, surely not. What? Annie?
Knew that I would, just through laws of karma, end up with another hellion of a child if I became a teacher. So,
by laws of average, nothing else.
I just knew. Couldn't happen to anyone better. I mean, I would deserve it. Let's not mince words here. I would deserve to be put through hell by a 6-year-old. But as someone who, as a 6-year-old, put poor teachers through hell, I was like, I don't want to tempt fate.
God, I really wasn't the child my mother deserved. I really was. I the only trouble I ever gave I would just read quietly in class.
Oh, what a life you led. It's so funny because now you're so much more of an extrovert than most people, and I'm a little bit more of an introvert. I feel like we switched places.
That makes sense. We're like cats, you hit year 5, you settle into the personality.
You settle in, grow some tuft. You look great.
Got a little tough now. Love when people give me a little scratch.
My cheeks have gotten a lot fluffier. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, again, nothing wrong with teachers, nothing wrong with writing. I do write professionally, and I have to say it's fine as someone who writes nonfiction. It's not what people normally think of when they go into school as an English major. I've had a relatively standard English major career. When I was in college, so I went to a majority business school, so a lot of people were like, oh, you're going into HR. You're going into some sort of empathetic field. And I said, no, probably not. As mentioned earlier, I'm a little bit more of an introvert than that. I didn't want to work directly with a ton of people every single day and be forced to deal with other people's happiness, when in reality, I'm like, I don't care. God, it sounds awful.
No, it's just honest.
I was honest with myself at that point. I would be like, I would not do justice to the poor people of whatever company I was thrust upon. So I didn't want to go into HR. Instead, I went into editing. I can tell you about my career path. I was very, very lucky to be the recipient of mentorships by some incredible editors in the industry, probably some of the best editors, in my opinion, to have ever worked, editors and writers. And I became a proofreader at a publishing company. I just got my foot in the door as a customer service rep. I was literally on inbound calling, which I know you did, but you didn't do it at a publishing company. The hell of inbound call centers are.
Internal promotions are a real thing, guys. Like, they always give consideration internally first.
They do, and I 100% appreciate that. I became a proofreader, kind of got my way out of the call center, thank God. Mm-hmm. Became a associate editor after that, and then worked my way up to become a managing editor and then a content manager at this publishing company, and made a lot of contacts, got a lot of clients now as a freelance editor. I am holding on to those clients, and people trust me, and they reach out to me directly and ask me to do work for them. And I'm obviously happy to do it. And they know my style. They know that I'm willing to go the extra mile for them, which I think is one of those things that is incredibly important. Yes, work ethic is always going to be important, but...
And just your reputation, it's critical.
Yes. Nowadays, I think they would probably call that your professional brand, but because I started out in corporate instead of freelance, I just call it my reputation. But I feel like that's a relatively standard professional course for an English major. You know, people assume that you want to go into publishing. People assume that you want to go that route. But if you actually look at the skills that you develop as someone who, even if you don't go to college as an English major, but who's someone who has a strong connection with the written word, the skills that you develop are things like critical reading, things like concise expression of your opinions, things like interpersonal communication, because you have to be able to actually talk about what you're feeling and reading in any given text. And I feel like those skills are incredibly useful in any industry.
And it's very frustrating. I'm just going to go ahead and put this out there, that English gets such a bad reputation as being like, what can you do with an English? Like, oh, you're going to be a dude. Like, that's such bullshit.
It is.
No, every job, especially nowadays, there are technical fields and that need specific certifications and degrees and a very specific skill set to approach. But there are so many fields where you don't need that an English degree gives you the basis to learn. Every one of those fields needs training. There's no way that you're just ready out of the gate to do I can't even name them off the top of my head. There's so many.
Audience analysis off the top of my head.
Market research.
We talk about market research all the time, even on this podcast, and we're talking about news most of the time.
I mean, it's so silly. Like the ability to target your questions and to understand and to engage with your target audience, and it's just everything. Anyway.
So, Kaylee, because you took a slightly different track, I want to talk about your career path before we dive into some other things that people don't really know about. So you started out as probably the vaguest job title I've ever heard, which is business analyst.
Actually, I started out as a technical writer.
Which is, okay, technical writing. That's what I was going to bring up. So tell us about technical writing.
Guys, somebody has to write your textbooks, your manuals, your how-to guides,
your internal documents about how the software is supposed to work, and then how you're actually going to be using it.
When you're navigating your car's menus, the things that it tells you to do, the help.
Someone had to
design
fingers to keyboard and write those words in.
Yeah.
And that was...
it was me to start with. I worked on an application, actually, that was it was a disaster relief application. Was
I definitely thought you were just going to say it was a disaster of an application.
It was a little bit of a disaster of an application.
I mean, people might listen to this, it's fine.
I'm not going to name names. No, so it was it was a disaster relief application, and that's where I got that was my first job out of college. There wasn't a lot, especially specifically where I was in Tennessee, which made it a little difficult to continue working in that specific field. Everything that, I wanted to do, it wasn't at the time, there wasn't as much virtual. They wanted you to be there.
Yeah, most technical writing jobs these days, I will say, are entirely virtual because
that was not the case when I graduated.
Yeah.
So
we won't date you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I look great for my age, you guys.
She was so pretty, guys. You don't even know. She just did a hair flip.
I did. So, speaking of getting very lucky, I happen to have a friend who he was also an English major, but he got a certification through a school that applied business analysis. Mm-hmm. And again, Annie is not wrong. I have never just told somebody I'm a business analyst and then be like, oh, of course, I know exactly what you do. It tells you nothing. But yeah, so that was my friend. He'd gone through a certification program.
Out of curiosity, what was the certification program?
I believe it was the CCBA.
I will say certifications are going to be unsung heroes if you either don't want to commit the money or don't want to commit the time to a 4-year degree. Having a certification essentially just proves that you can do the thing and that an organization is certifying that you can do the thing. And some people don't particularly like being like, oh, well, why can't I just prove it? I know, I agree with you. But if you just have the thing on your resume,
it's harder to get, it's difficult to get someone through a background check. Yeah. And so they're not going to invest time in you if you don't have something on your resume to show that you can do it.
Proving that you can do something in an interview, proving that you can do something in the first few weeks of a job are totally valid. But if you want to have that instant recognition with an employer, having a certification is super helpful. I went through the University of California, San Diego Extension system has a copy editing certification, and that has helped me get in the door on a couple interviews and clients. So just let them knowing that I can do different forms of editing.
Even for people that have the education, it still helps.
The more that you can prove that you know how to do a thing,
the likelier they are to take a second look.
Exactly. Yes. So your friend got this certification.
My friend got a certification as a business analyst, and they basically interviewed out for a couple companies that were looking for business analysts. And what does a business analyst do, you might ask? So when you're on a project and you need a thing, anything, it could be literally anything. Nowadays, it's largely software, but it could be like a more functional warehouse design. It could be a better crane. I don't know. Literally digging up the ground and laying cable.
Building a hospital.
Yeah.
Business analysis are the people who are sitting there figuring out what you need to do.
So it's not necessarily so much, I don't need to be the expert, but I need to be able to talk to the people that have the need and the experts
and bridge
that connection to figure out how to get that need fulfilled in a manner that's functional.
You're using those critical reading skills, that concise expression that you absolutely need, all of the interpersonal communication that we just talked about.
Yeah, I got lucky. And again, I got lucky. Also, guys, we're very privileged.
We are lucky. And we acknowledge and we hope to use this as a platform to help other people understand also more opportunities that even if they are perhaps not as privileged, they can at least have their eyes open to ways that they can use their skills.
Absolutely. So what happened with my friend, he did not get lucky. He found a program that had work placement, and that is absolutely 100% a thing that I recommend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, going through those certification courses, again, don't have the time or the money to go to a 4-year degree, go through those certification courses, and they will have, if not career counselors, then human beings who have gone through this career before, and you can leverage those people.
Definitely and I don't know if we're going to keep this in or not, but research the certification just a little bit, just enough.
Yes, make sure you're getting a legit certification.
Yeah, guys, I know it's rough, and I know that it's exhausting and tiresome, but like, don't put your time and your tears and your effort and what money does cost, because there's usually an upfront cost, and anything that's too good to be true is too good to be true.
Agreed.
Just do a little bit of research, but yeah, so certifications, there are good programs, and colleges have good short-term certification programs. They're adjacent to their 4-year degrees.
Like where we are in Maryland, the University of Maryland has an extension program that is incredible. They have certification courses similar to the ones we're talking about. Our University of Maryland actually focuses a lot more on agriculture. So if you ever are looking for agriculture certifications, University of Maryland has got
you covered.
And also most community colleges give back to the community in some way. So I know a lot of people have a weird stigma about community college. I think that is totally undeserved.
Garbage, yeah. Like, community colleges get such a bad rep. Guys, I just want to be clear. As somebody, and this is another thing, if you're interested in potentially, but you can't, like, swing the cost of a 4-year degree, like, when you get started, like community college is absolutely appropriate, and you can still finalize your degree at another school. They prioritize transfers. You are treated differently than incoming freshmen, and they will prioritize you because you've already proven that you can do the work and that you're not going to be just an immediate dropout.
Which they hate. So, yes. So those critical reading skills and that communication skills helped you with your BA. And then you moved up even further.
I did. So, I jumped to another company. And to be fair, I just want to be clear, I jumped industries. Like, these are not skills that lock you into an industry.
No, they're
which
incredible.
Is critical thinking.
Yes.
And the ability to analyze what you're reading. So helpful. Like I went from...
And it's one of those things that, like, I mean, the business analysis, I would say the business analysis industry even exists because a lot of people don't have that skill.
They don't. It's absurd.
The fact that it takes, I mean, a cohort who knows how to critically read and understand just reams of information and then to convey it to someone else, the fact that that is an industry tells you how valued people who are just readers in their bones are. I
did not understand. Like, and I still acknowledge, I still don't understand. Acknowledging that it is a thing in the world, but like they're just, people, nobody thinks of it like that. I'm like, my common sense is tingling. I don't understand why this is so weird and different and it doesn't, and that's something that might be, I know, a blocker for some people because you just think that this just makes sense and this is just how people think, and it's not. It's a marketable
It absolutely is.
trait.
So one of the other things a lot of people will ask me is how can I get into like design jobs in business? And I will say what we're talking about business analysis, if you add another layer to that, which is just charting, if you can take your insights and put them into a visual format, that is another industry called business intelligence.
Yep.
And if you can do both of those things, you will already be highly marketable. If you can critically read boring pieces of information, which as English majors, we freaking know how to do.
We can digest it like a champ.
And then you can make a chart out of what you just read, whatever kind of chart, whether it's a bar graph or a pie chart or whatever it is, graphing something about that information, that's business intelligence. People pay top dollar. But you are currently a project manager, I believe.
I am.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your sort of skills that you use?
Oh, God. So I won't say this in a way that
you don't have to give details, but you can give just
to put out fires. No.
Being calm under stressful situations is not an English major trait, but it's helpful if you have it.
So, absolutely. So again, just the ability to reduce your clutter down to the concise meaning of a requirement.
Yes.
What is the minimum thing that you need to have to be able to move forward?
To express your needs.
Yes. So that is, you have to have that. And then if the ability to just make rapid decisions, and I can say that it helped I definitely found that rapid decisions and the ability to document what you're doing, because guys, documentation is so critical. I just want to be very clear.
That's another thing that English majors I feel are very good at, is documenting what we did and why we did it.
Yeah. And not only is it CYOA, like cover your butt, but like it's also later you're trying to build or iterate off of what you've done. You won't remember that forever. Like nobody will, and you may not always be there. Like the person that came before you better hope that they've left you some information. So the ability to figure out what you need, the ability to think quickly in a crisis, document your next steps, and then move forward with that, decisively. The ability to just think about the whole nature, like to just conceptualize everything that you're working with and see the journey from the very beginning, and to figure out and to just interpret what your people are actually needing versus what they're saying they're needing. Because they're going to say, well, I need to be able to enter this one number. Is that what they actually need? Or is it the ability to actually document a whole mess of data? In which case, do they need to enter one number? Do they need to enter 3 different things? And do they need to have an automated thing happen off of that? Like, they're not going to know. They will not know that. You have to know enough to ask the questions and then to examine and interpret all of the things that you're seeing to move forward with your projects. So yeah, that's currently I moved from BA to product owner currently, actually.
And just as an example, I mean, we talk about all the subtext in Dorian Gray, where it's like, oh, they're talking about a bee landing on a flower, but we're like, well, they're talking about the do right now,
yes,
clearly.
Definitely.
But that's kind of what Kaylee's talking about, is like someone's saying one thing, but what they really mean is that they need this specific job to be easier. How can we make that happen? Like, what are the pain points? What are the problems happening? And I feel like we're, at least in my opinion, very uniquely suited for that.
Yes.
Other things that English majors have thrived doing, and I'm taking some of this from a presentation from the American Copy Editors Society. One presenter had a whole thing about, changing careers, of going in or out of editing, administration tasks. A lot of people kind of look down on administration like, I don't want to be a secretary. Listen, a good admin person is worth their weight in gold and can demand their weight in gold. They can and do, make especially executive administration. Like, these people are managing the lives of CEOs and can probably do the jobs of those CEOs.
Yeah, definitely give them, like, if the CEO needed to take a break, I mean, maybe there's one or two things that person couldn't do, but for the most part, they could keep that company rolling for months.
And they are the CEOs are more than aware of that fact. Speaking as someone who comes from a lot of, so Kaylee and I both have done time in the finance trenches where a lot of money is. And also people are paid quite fairly in finance, I feel. But I feel admin in finance they are well acknowledged for all of the work that they do. And this is things like organization, being able to recognize what is happening and what's probably going to happen next. And if something different, what's important. And if something different than what's important happens, here's our contingency plan for it. Being extremely organized. If you're one of those people who color codes all your notes and actually uses those color codes, trust me when I tell you, people need that. Especially your, CEOs of the world. And also, just your general office managers, like the people who are managing. If you want to talk about HR without the downsides of HR, office management is absolutely incredible for that. You are helping people, but they're not really your responsibility. It's just the objects around them that are. There are so many things. What else? I think I just blabbered for a couple of minutes about office management.
No, that's accurate. So outside of, again, technical writing, absolutely 100% cannot. It's such a foundational, industry that doesn't get enough, maybe recognition. We did chat a little bit about, certain things that were more kind of traditional. HR, obviously, is one.
And no shade to HR. That's just not quite for Kaylee and I.
No, and, again, nothing against teaching. Yeah, it's just there are things that you can do and you don't have the patience to do. Maybe is a
absolutely
a way to look at that. Yeah.
There are also tons of different kinds of writers that I think that a lot of people don't quite know about. Copywriting is one of those things that if you are a young person starting out, it might feel like, I don't want to jump into advertising or marketing. Copywriting is an extremely creative process. It is a lot of creative writing. It happens to be usually meant to sell people on things. And if you are good at talking to people and communicating the benefits of something, copywriting may genuinely be for you. I recommend doing research. There's a lot of, watch Mad Men. That's the kind of writing that we're talking about. These people who kind of take what every person wants and can distill it into a few words and then put it out there in the most effective way. That's what copywriters do.
Interpreters, speaking just in the community.
If you speak more than one language, please use that. You are needed.
As Annie said, multilingual interpretation is very critical as well, and the ability to understand and kind of go back and forth between idiomatic English and idiomatic other languages is very critical. Paralegals and bookkeeping even, I would say. I know there's more math involved, but
it's basic math.
Yeah, it is. it's not, you're not wrong, but like, it's also the ability to maintain and manage other people's business, and you need to be able to let them know. Like, you'll get so much more respect and maybe business if you can let them know when there are issues, if you can analyze those trends. Like, that's
another thing I feel that English majors are uniquely suited for. Like, we will instinctively know, looking at a book cover, whether or not there is an audience for this, whether you know it or not. That is market trend analysis. That is you being able to show up and say, hey, here is who is the audience for this service, this book, whatever it is.
Here's what it was targeted for.
Exactly. There are a lot of consultation services out there. Usually you're going to be looking at like a local service, but there are people out there who do like freelance bookkeeping consultations or freelance marketing or business consultations. It sounds very vague, much like business analysis, but that doesn't mean that it's not worth your time.
Go flexible, not vague. You're being flexible. You're
exactly.
a flexible person that has a flexibly marketed set of skills.
Basically, what I want to leave you guys with is the feeling that there is
you don't have to be a teacher.
There. You don't have to be a teacher.
If you want to be a teacher, great. If you don't want to be a teacher, also great. Like, an English degree is not worthless, but you do need to figure out how you want to frame it and what you want to do with it. And that's just something that you have to keep in mind. You do need to be somewhat self-motivated.
A lot of, I think, issues with being young and being in school is having this feeling that you have no clue what's going to come next. And I remember very much disliking that feeling. Maybe some people thrive on that feeling.
Who?
I did not.
Who?
I wished that I had, options out there just laid out for me. And we're talking about a lot of non-publishing jobs right now. If you go into publishing, it's a whole other just group of incredible jobs. If you are someone who is just like, you really like get nerdy about market trend analysis, acquisitions may be for you, where you hunt down new authors that are going to sell well in the current market. If you're someone who really loves like the nitty gritty of like what does and doesn't work in a law, in math or something, maybe I'm about to say acquisitions again. Maybe rights and permissions is for you. These are the people who track down and make sure that you have the right to say what you're going to say as a publisher, as a news organization. In news organizations, the production staff is incredible. I mean, a lot of people become designers and want to like make art, and that's fantastic. And I want to encourage people to pursue their art and their passions. But given the option, you can go and walk into any production company, any publishing company. And as a designer, if you can use the tools that they need you to use, which is just Adobe Creative Suite, you are going to be fine. You are going to do amazing work. And maybe it's not going to be the most, passion-inducing job for you, but it will pay your bills and you will be still using the skills that you paid to learn to use. And that, I think, is really my pitch, is don't limit yourself to the best thing or the perfect thing.
You don't have to be number one. You just have to find something that you're comfortable with and you're happy enough with.
Yes. You need to be able to eat and put a roof over your head.
You can always work to the thing that makes you the happiest, as long as you're happy. You don't have to be number one. You don't have to be perfect. Like, nothing right out of college or high school is going to be perfect. Just want to put that out there. But you find what you want and you work for it. Like, that's what you can do.
Any more advice for new grads of high school or college?
Think about what you actually like to do. Think about things that you like to do or that you can stand. I'm not trying to be funny, but think about actually what you want, and then figure out, like, break it down into steps to get there. You are not going to climb a mountain in a day. If you can't break it down, then you're not going to get there. But if you figure out the steps that it takes, then it's achievable. And also, don't be afraid to reevaluate. Yes, you can get halfway through a journey and realize that it's not for you, and that's okay. It's still a valuable journey. You can change your mind. Nothing is forever. You can reevaluate at any time.
Thanks for listening. I am Annie.
I'm Kaylee.
You can find The Ink Sink on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Anchor and Spotify with availability for sponsorships. You can sponsor us for as low as $1 a month. That would be really nice. Also, thank you, Abby.
Thanks, Abby.
You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and one day Kaylee will make us a Tumblr.
This has been the news.
If you would like to hear or see any of the books that we have talked about ever, we have them all on bookshop.org, so you can support your local bookshop. Please do. And support your libraries. Thanks for listening.
Have a good one.